in Kentucky, where it's a very red state, but they have a Democratic governor, Andy Beshear, Beshear actually did something kind of amazing this week. On Wednesday, Beshear signed an executive order banning conversion therapy on minors throughout the state, which is an incredible thing to do. Specifically, the order prohibits the use of state funds and federal funds for the harmful and unscientific idea. It also gives state agencies the power to discipline anybody who engages in the practice during their training. So this is amazing. Let me show you this executive order here. Check this out. It is, I mean, it's from September 18th, but I want to show you one little aspect of it right here. The Commonwealth has a strong interest in protecting the health, safety, and welfare of all of its citizens, including LGBTQ plus youth. The Commonwealth also has a significant interest in ensuring that state and federal funds are used for evidence-based services and not for unethical, dangerous, and contraindicated practices that medical professionals find are not credible and oppose. Practices like conversion therapy risk harm to our youth. Like, yes, absolutely it does. That's an amazing thing for him to say and sign. And yes, great. So Kentucky now joins 23 other states and the District of Columbia in banning this procedure for minors. And I guess what happened in Kentucky is that they tried to pass legislation to make this happen. It was bipartisan. I don't know how many Republicans signed off on it, but at least one. But they weren't able to get it over that hurdle. So Andy Beshear's like, fine, then I'm going to do an executive order. And his reason for doing it is obvious. Conversion therapy does not work. You can't talk someone out of being gay or lesbian. That's not how that works. You can't force someone not to be trans. You can try to suppress it. You can try to force them to be in the closet about it, but you're not going to stop them from being LGBTQ. And there are so many stories we have heard from victims talking about how their experiences with conversion therapy amount to torture. And yet, this whole thing has been in Christian circles for decades now. You may recall, actually, that there used to be a Christian ministry called Exodus International. It formed in the 1970s to show the world that gay people could turn straight. And of course, predictably, it failed because that's not how anything works. In 2013, Exodus International actually shut down after its leaders admitted, yeah, none of it actually worked. We're part of the leadership team and we are still 100% gay. How gay? Gay to the point that like Mark Robinson watches us at night. Netflix, if you haven't seen it, Netflix actually released a documentary. It's called Pray Away, like Pray Away the Gay. They released this film, Pray Away, where several former Exodus officers admitted they had always been gay, no matter what they said to the contrary in public. And they also now agreed that what Exodus did was harmful. So, and they said not only was it harmful, it was arguably torture. And the problem isn't just this lack of support that the procedure works, it's also the misguided belief that being gay is sinful, that acting on it is always immoral, that anyone can change their sexual orientation or gender identity if they just give in to Jesus. Like, no state should be supporting, much less funding any of that stuff. I believe there was a report, this is from UCLA a couple of years ago, which said nearly 700,000 adults have gone through conversion therapy, and half of them said they received it as children. Another 16,000 LGBTQ minors stood to receive it in states where the practice was not banned. There have been there have been attempts to argue that this procedure works. Famously, there was one scientific paper that suggested this was a legitimate thing. But guess what? That scientific paper was later retracted. When that Netflix movie came out, though, I wanted to show you this. When that Netflix movie came out, Pray Away, Focus on the Family, the Christian group that has become known for promoting conversion therapy, they actually released a statement trying to defend themselves from all this. And let me show you this right here. We believe in empowering, this is from Focus on the Family. We believe in empowering individuals for health and realistic living toward their goals. For some, this includes therapeutically investigating their sexuality and exploring faith compatible resources for their individual situation. Of course, we recognize that our values aren't everyone's values, but we believe the availability of respectful, safe, ethical counseling in matters of sexuality honors all clients by allowing them to receive meaningful help that aligns with their values. Like, dude, no, there's no way to shine this. There's no way to put a positive spin on torture. But that is what Focus on the Family was doing. They're saying, look, we just want to help them therapeutically investigate their sexuality. Like this is some sort of Christian spa. Like, no, 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 no. They're still defending it, even as these people who were known for promoting it are like, we lied to everybody. That's how horrible that organization is. And also, one of the things I found interesting is what Republicans are saying now that Andy Beshear has signed that executive order. Let me show you some of this. This is from a guy named Josh Calloway, who is a state representative. And look at what he said. Why is Andy Beshear determined to keep vulnerable children confused? I will fight this with every fiber of my being. If reelected, I will file legislation on day one to stop this governor from pushing his harmful far left agenda on struggling kids. The far left agenda of don't torture children? All right. I am also exploring other legal options to stop egregious overreach. Andy Beshear, leave the kids alone, which is a wild thing coming from a conservative Christian. Like, when do they ever practice, when are they not doing egregious overreach? Also, what? I'll file legislation on day one? What legislation? Legislation that Beshear would veto? What are you even doing? And how is it? I will fight this with every fiber of my being. Why would you go to the mat for let's not torture children? Like there's so many things a politician could care about that matters to people. And he's like, nope, we gotta have the ability to force people to be straight against their will. Like this guy isn't just a Republican state lawmaker. He is also a Baptist preacher, by the way. Um, there was also, however, I liked this response. This is from a guy named Brandon Long, who is a Democrat running for state rep. Hi, Josh. I stood beside the camera as you spewed this nonsense without once asking about my experience. I was a struggling kid pushed toward conversion therapy, which I graciously survived. Trust me, no one wants it unless they've been told they are wrong and need to be fixed. Like, thank you. Thank you, Brandon Long, for speaking out against that. That can't be an easy thing to point out. So it's not just these dudes having fights with each other. The Republican Party in Kentucky also condemned Andy Beshear's executive order. This is what they said. 12 Republican senators slammed Beshear for the order, which they said disregards the First Amendment rights regarding freedom of religion and speech and violates the fundamental parental rights and responsibilities for their children. We could stop right there. How does this executive order disregard First Amendment rights? Beshear is not going into churches and telling Christian pastors, you have to not be bigots. They can absolutely spread bigotry in church if that's what Jesus taught them to do. Like they can. No one is going through their sermons. No one's telling them they can't preach about this stuff. No one is even saying a pastor cannot lie and tell people just pray and then the gay stuff will go away. A pastor can even tell someone to do Christian counseling and tell them you don't have to be gay. No one is stopping that. But there is a difference between your church trying to harm people, which is what they want to do, and saying the state's going to reward you for it. We're going to let you keep your professional license if you do this in a clinic. We're going to make sure you're not reimbursed like by Medicare or whatever if you're doing this. No one's going into their church. So I don't get how this is a freedom of religion problem or a freedom of speech problem. Time and again, the Kentucky Supreme Court has told the governor he lacks the power to create policy in the Commonwealth. Executive orders are allowed. Ask Trump. He used a ton of them. Yet again, the governor is defying everybody. Yeah. The executive order uses such vague and overbroad language that healthcare providers are at risk. What a euphemism right there. Healthcare providers is the term these people are using to describe Christian torturers. And children will be left without needed mental health care. Again, they're giving it away. Who needs mental? First of all, Republicans do not care about mental health care. They are not asking for more funding for mental health care. But also, think about what they're saying here. If there is a gay child who needs that child needs mental health care. No, he doesn't, because there's nothing wrong with his brain. But again, they're Republicans. What do you expect from them, right? What else did I want to point out here? So that's what the Republicans are doing. I also saw that the backlash was coming from right-wing organizations. This is in the Associated Press article about this. The Family Foundation, a socially conservative group in Kentucky, said Beshear's order tramples on the rights of parents and suppresses religious expression. Same thing as the Republicans were saying. It's not true. It referred to the ban as an unlawful action, perhaps signaling a legal challenge. This order, like previous failed legislative efforts, is designed to promote false LGBTQ ideologies and muzzle Christian counselors, therapists, and pastors from helping children struggling with sexual orientation or gender identity confusion. Why would kids be struggling with that stuff? Maybe it's because they have to spend a lot of time in church with people like this who won't let them just be. Like, my God, what's the false LGBTQ ideology they think Beshear's spreading? The ideology is you're fine. You exist. We see you. There's no ideology there. It's just acknowledging their humanity. And honestly, if saying you're not allowed to hurt kids muzzles Christian counselors, therapists, and pastors, I feel like that's a you problem at that point. Maybe you're just bad counselors and therapists and pastors and human beings who should think twice about how you are spending your waking hours. Look, as far as I can tell, because other states have also done this, the executive order is legal. The ban on conversion therapy for minors is legal. Kentucky is not the first state to do this. These people are just angry because they have spent years coming up with a fictional solution to a fictional problem, and Beshear is calling bullshit on it, and they can't handle it. Like, more importantly, there's nothing in the executive order that stops Christians from spreading hate, which is the thing these people really want to do. In any case, it's just so awesome to see something like this, period, but especially when it's in Kentucky. In the South, Beshear courageously signed that executive order. He must have known there was going to be pushback, but he did it anyway. And, one thing he said during his press conference that I appreciated, he said, quote, "This is not about red or blue. It's not about politics at all. To me, it's not even about gender or sexuality. It's about protecting our youth from an inhumane practice that hurts them." And these conservative Christians are like, sorry, our entire religion is all about making sure we can do these inhumane practices and hurt children. That's what Jesus taught us to do. Inhumanity is the basis of their faith. Uh, Good for Beshear for ignoring them and doing the right thing anyway. Okay, gonna pause there with that story for a bit. Let's if there are any questions, let's talk. Why only for minors though? I think it's a simple answer, Vanessa. I think it's you can't really, if an adult says, I don't want to be gay and I want to do this false thing, at that point, it's like an adult saying, I'll do a horoscope, I'll go to the chiropractor, I'll do whatever pseudoscience they want to do. Like, fine, you're an adult, you have a right to make bad decisions. Just because something is unscientific, if you're an adult making your own choices, fine, you can waste your life however you want to. But for people who are paid by the state to provide services, for them to tell a gay child, sorry, you're gay, we can fix that. The state should not be sponsoring, rewarding, reimbursing any of that. So the state has an obligation to protect kids. They can't really stop you in as an adult from doing whatever you want to do. So I think that's why they make that distinction. We believe in respectful, safe, and ethical counseling, said Focus on the Family. Conversion therapy, by definition, is not safe, ethical, or respectful. You are correct on all those points, but Focus on the Family does not care what you have to think. because their idea of a good marriage is also one that purposely excludes gay marriages, everything else that doesn't fit their mold. So, yeah, I mean, never listen to a conservative Christian organization tell you this is the right way to do things because I mean, if you ask them about gender roles too, they'll say, we believe in women who listen to the men as they're in the kitchen doing the dishes and making us dinner. Like, they're very limited in what their idea of respectful, safe, and ethical is on everything. So, yeah, but you're right. You're absolutely right about conversion therapy. These Republicans need to leave the kids alone and stop grooming them into their religion. Seriously, all the projection they have on gay people, on drag queens, like they're the ones we need to be worried about. Would you rather leave your kid with a drag queen reading books in the library or a youth pastor? This is not a complicated question. You are so much safer in the library at this point, given all the headlines I've seen.